Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Okay, I see a thumbs up. Okay. I'm gonna be monitoring the chat, but I have a lot to get through, so I wanna just go ahead and get into it. So hi everyone. Okay, awesome. Hi everyone, my name is Nooravi, and today we're gonna be talking about mastering domain agnostic skills. I'm gonna be talking kind of quick, so, but I'll open up to a breakout session later so we can discuss any questions that you guys might have. So a little bit of background on myself. So I've kind of gone through many transitions throughout through my education and into my career, which has kind of allowed me to I don't want to say master, but kind of develop and understand what skills are needed in order to make sure that I'm able to make transitions kind of somewhat seamlessly. So when I started out, I think I was in business. I did a sales internship. I don't know what I was doing with that. Then I moved into statistics. I thought I'd be running experiments and doing more of like a research type position. Then I moved into engineering, mechanical engineering, thought I'd go into renewables, ended up at a entertainment startup where we were doing marketing analytics, moved into mobile gaming where I was also doing marketing analytics, and now I work as a financial analyst. And so kind of moving around and developing skill sets kind of across the board. So really, I'm going to kind of make the argument to you guys that understanding and mastering domain agnostic skills will help you out. And so this is what we typically think of, and tell me if the slide, okay, the slides are changing. So this is how we think about the traditional way of our careers, right? It's this climbing the corporate ladder. I'm going to start with a company and stay with them for the longevity of my career. Maybe that's 10 to 40 years, right? And so this no longer exists, especially when we think about how tech companies have kind of changed this landscape, right? So when we look at Silicon Valley kind of giving out all these great benefits and really trying to increase retention and tenure of their employees, but really not being able to do that because of such high competition over the very really, really good talent. And so they look at us and they're like, well, y'all are millennials, you can't keep a job for too long, it's your fault. And we look at them and we're like, well, company culture, this and this and that. So I'm not going to make an argument as to why this is the way the numbers are the way they are, but this is just the fact. I'm just putting up what the facts are. So we're seeing kind of a shortening of the tenure of employees in these tech companies. So what this ends up doing to our career journeys, right? What our journeys start looking like is more like a winding road rather than a linear path of just promotions, right? So you'll see people doing a lot more horizontal shifts rather than, necessarily vertical shifts, with no lack in increase in pay and difference in skill sets that are being leveraged, and potentially happiness. So there's a lot of reasons why people might want to change their jobs, and we'll see a lot of it, like I alluded to, like company culture might be one of them, maybe not using your skills to the fullest, maybe feeling like you lost interest in one domain and want to move into another. Also things like very real things like the pandemic that's happening right now and the job loss that's happened. And so now having to navigate your career, maybe moving into a different domain out of necessity, right? And so rethinking the way our career journeys look and the overall views of our careers is now changing. So it's more like this winding road rather than like a linear path. So now I'm defining this idea of a data nomad, right? And so this data nomad, I've defined it like this. It's an individual who's mastered the skills to move around different industries, seamlessly adding value. So here I'm pointing out I'm kind of emphasizing two different components. The seamlessly part, which is really for you, right? And so the better you are at transitioning or at being comfortable with transition, the easier it is for you to do this. Now, the adding value part is really on the company side, right? So if you're not able to prove that you're able to add value, well, then no one's benefiting from this. So really there's a part for you and there's a part for them. I'm also not saying that you need to always be transitioning, right? I'm just saying that if in the need that you need, if in the instance that you have to or need to or want to, that you have that ability to do that. So who is best suited for this? So that's that question, right? So when I started thinking about, okay, someone who wants to achieve data nomad status, what are the characteristics of this person, right? And so I started thinking, okay, well, clearly they're going to have to be, a good problem solver, a quick learner, someone who's smart, autonomous, and then also a good communicator. When I think about some of this or most of this is actually soft skills, right? It's like, how do you have the ability to move around domains and clearly communicate your value and clearly communicate with different types of people, right? And so having these kinds of characteristics can really allow you to be very, set yourself up for success in your career. And then it now begs this next question, right? It's like, well, you're basically telling me, Sarah, that I need to be a jack of all trades rather than a master of one. And who's the better hire? Well, I'm not going to also make I'm not going to tell you which one is better, but I'm going to make an argument that potentially being a jack of all trades, especially in this new environment where things are not linear anymore, having the mastery of many different skill sets and being a jack of all trades can actually be more beneficial to you in the long run. So now we're going to get into the what. So what skills do you need in order to achieve this, right? So, so what I've done here on the right-hand side is I've pulled a requisition, right? So this is a rec, and I kind of want, okay, put yourself in the mindset of someone who's transitioning, right? And you're approached with this rec, and you're like, okay, well, what do I need in order to achieve maybe I want to guarantee that I get this job. What do I need to look for? Okay, and I'm going to start breaking this down. And the first thing that I noticed in the first couple of lines is they're emphasizing domain experience, right? How are you going to, and I can't read it, it's too small, but you can go ahead and read it, but like, how are you going to understand the business and the domain enough in order to add value quickly? And again, as a data nomad, you're not the master of one, right? You don't know everything about this domain. So it's going to be maybe new to you. And so how do you leverage other things to compensate for your lack of domain experience? So here I'm going to tell you guys a quick story. So I get reached out to on LinkedIn quite frequently, especially from people who are in a transitionary phase, right? So here's someone, very thoughtful post. I do respond to thoughtful posts. So this one in particular, he has a strong research background. He was in a different industry and wanted to move into mobile gaming, which is great. And also noticed that he was laid off due to COVID. So again, life situations happen, things happen in life, and we need to know how to pivot, how to move, how to adapt, and kind of make the most out of unfortunately bad situations. And here's an opportunity, right? It's like, how can I now, because of this unfortunate situation, move into maybe an industry that's actually might be of more interest to me? So what's interesting about him reaching out is that when I was talking to him, I was like, look, when I applied for that job, I actually didn't have any mobile gaming experience. But what I was able to do is leverage my past. Well, I looked at the rec and I actually found a lot of things. When I looked at it, I was like, my day-to-day here, I'm interested in optimization. I'm interested in user acquisition, user retention, the user journey. I'm interested in building LTV models. Like, all of this stuff sounds interesting to me despite my lack of mobile gaming experience. So how can I position myself in a way that I still sell myself as a value add, and even just as valuable as someone who comes from the domain itself? So the less obvious here is leveraging your past experience, right? How in the past have you been able to pivot, right? You failed, you learned, you improved, you added value. How can you highlight and really bring to the forefront your ability to pivot and learn quickly and add value? And what also you'll need to do in a moment of transition is realize that you need to convey a near obsession over this new domain, because when you're looking to convince someone, hey, I don't have the domain experience, but I'm just as valuable as someone who's been doing it for 4 years, because I'm so curious, I'm asking the right questions, I'm maybe asking questions that you haven't even thought about. And because I come from a different background, I'm able to provide a different perspective, right? And so how are you able to really position yourself in a way that is of added value? Now, a byproduct of this that might not seem so obvious to either side is that really by leveraging someone who doesn't come from the same background is actually creating a diverse team. And there's been a lot of research that's been done to show that diverse teams actually produce better outcomes and better solutions for the business than those that are fully homogeneous. So in this case, how can you, again, leverage your past experience and say, hey, I have experience in XYZ, and this is how I know that it'll add value to this team, and presenting it in that way. So the next piece that I'm highlighting on the rec is the technical skills. So you'll notice forecasting, experimental design, and interpretation. Obviously, they'll have the programming languages that they care for, so the SQL and the Python. So every company is going to be different, and they're going to have their specifications of what they're looking for. So now this could look overwhelming, right? You can look at this and be like, well, maybe I lack in some of these skills. What do I do? Do I need to know the industry specific like methodologies in order to apply for this job and land it? Well, what I'm going to tell you is, and this whole concept of being a data nomad is really that 90% of what you'll need to know to move into any domain, right, is the foundational statistics and the foundational programming. When I was in college and I was doing my stats degree, my professor would say, you know, as a statistician, you can go into anyone's backyard, right? If you really thoroughly understand the foundational concepts, right? So that's the sampling, the distributions, basic modeling, right? So, and the interpretations, those become very important. Now, the industry specific stuff are things that you can learn on the job, right? And so with the domain experience and with the technical skills, my philosophy, which I try to get people to do, but not everyone can, is that you don't pay to learn, get paid to learn. So the reason why I'm saying that most people might not end up doing this is because boot camps, master's programs, a lot of people are still making a lot of money off of those resources, and they're great resources. But if and when you can, maybe get a job that'll allow you to build the skills while you're there. Now, the next one, again, kind of obvious one, right? They literally clearly write it out for you. Solve problems, right? So being a problem solver, having this creative mindset, and again, leveraging your past experience that isn't directly related to create very novel, new ways of solving problems for them. So I don't want to use up my 6 minutes going into tangents and stories, but I can't emphasize that enough. Being able to really approach things from a way where you're being creative in your solutions and wowing them with that. And then lastly is soft skills. So here, when we're talking about soft skills, I'm actually, when I showed you guys the visual of the data nomad, a lot of the characteristics that I highlighted are actually soft skills, right? So how do you connect with people? How do you build a good reputation? How do you stay creative? How do you ask the right questions and be mindful, but also be focused, right? So these soft skills are really what are allowing you to kind of really sell yourself in the midst of an interview or a transition. So now, putting it all together, right? So we're looking at the trade-off. Okay, and you're evaluating your skill sets, and you're looking at each of these components, and you're saying, hey, where on a scale of 1 to 10 do I land on problem solving, on my soft skills, on the technical and the domain? And if you can look at your skill sets and say, okay, you know what, I'm very high on problem solving. I score very high on problem solving. I'm going to sell them on that, and I'm going to let them know that that is where I'm going to add value. And then I'm going to make up for my domain, my lack of, I can't point to it, but I'm going to make up for my lack of domain experience with a lot of curiosity, with an obsession with the field, right? And I'm going to let them know that this is my new skill set that I'm selling them on. So in my last 4 minutes, I'm going to tell you guys how. And a lot of this is motivational speak, right? There's a lot of self-help books that talk about this stuff, but I'm going to give you guys kind of my perception of this. So again, going back to what it means to be a data nomad, you know, all these great characteristics. I mean, when I think about this, I think confidence is key, right? When you're looking at an industry or a domain that you're trying to break into, it looks overwhelming, and it looks like so much to go after and to kind of tackle that you might be like, well, I don't think that I can do it, right? And then we start talking to ourselves in a way that isn't helping us, that isn't serving us. So how can you start breaking it down into smaller chunks? And when I used to be a tutor, I would basically look at where I wanted the student to end up in the end, and I wouldn't approach them with that first, right? I would approach them with smaller, bite-sized versions of what that might look like and building up their confidence for them to be like, yeah, I got that. Okay, yeah, I got that next one. And then basically give them enough confidence to tackle the goal at the end. So building up your confidence is key, starting with smaller, more bite-sized versions of it and breaking it down. And then less thinking, more doing. So here, this is a huge concept that's being brought up in a book that I'm reading that I'm going to show you guys. It's The Secrets of a Millionaire Mind. And he talks about this perception of, hey, when I'm overthinking something, then I'm not doing, right? And the more I try to be a planner, as much as that might seem like a good thing, right? I'm planning out everything. But when you're looking at it in excruciating detail and you're saying, you're finding more, right? The more you know about something, the more you realize how much you don't know. And then you start questioning what your confidence, you start questioning whether you should even pursue that, right? And so don't do that. The most successful people just start somewhere and then figure it out along the way. My favorite quote is, I don't try to make the right decision. I take a decision and then make it right. So like, that's always stuck with me. And I've realized that's been what I've been doing most of my career. And then the last one is really maintaining a growth mindset. So I don't feel like we do this enough in industry and in engineering and data and whatnot. Maintaining a growth mindset. What does that mean? When I think about a growth mindset, I think of someone who's failing a lot and learning from those failures. Sometimes when we fail, we use that as a reason to, we almost associate it with our self-worth. We say, okay, I failed. That must mean I'm bad at this. Whereas athletes, they're the perfect example of people who fail all the time. Athletes are failing all the time, and many times during a game, the entire team will lose. And they're having to basically look at that and say, hey, like that's not a definition of my skills. And that was just one game. I'm going to get right back up and I'm going to continue to reflect on that and do things better, right? And so I feel like in general, we need to reevaluate the way we think about failure and think about ourselves in this growth mindset in order to allow ourselves to kind of be successful. So I hope this helps. I love this slide. I love book recommendations if anyone has any, but the ones that I'm reading that I found very, very impactful for me are Secrets of a Millionaire Mind, which teaches you this difference between, like, I don't like the way he phrases it as rich and poor mindset, but just looking at a mindset that isn't serving you. And then How to Win Friends and Influence People, all about connection, right? Mindset, the growth mindset, never split the difference, how to negotiate, but also communication skills. And then that 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Amazing, all amazing books that I highly recommend that you all read. So mastering these skills will ensure hopefully that your transition is a fun one rather than a stressful one, which is what we want. But also don't forget that you're going to be working incredibly hard in order to achieve this. So I'm going to leave you guys with this thought. What action will you take today to achieve data nomad status? And I hope that you all have something that you felt like you can walk away with. And I will create a breakout session after this so that we can discuss or answer any questions that you guys might have.